Exposed. How my husband's indifference on his birthday led to an amazing 3-month transformation. Sarah Thompson stood in the doorway of her café, watching the sun spill golden light over Cedar Falls. The sweet aroma of freshly brewed coffee mixed with the warmth of baked pies filled her heart with hope. Today was special. It was Mark's 40th birthday, and she had planned a surprise party to show him just how much he meant to her and their children. Her fingers trembled with excitement as she adjusted the colorful streamers, her mind racing with memories of their younger days when surprises brought joyful twinkles to his eyes. But as noon approached and the townsfolk began to gather, a cold weight settled in her stomach. When Mark finally walked through the cafe door with a half-hearted smile, she felt the cheer drain from the room. Surprise! Everyone shouted, their voices bright, but Mark's expression was flat. He shrugged off her lovingly crafted decorations as just another day, his indifference striking her like a slap. The laughter around her faded into a heavy silence, and Sarah's heart shattered, speechless and confused. How could he dismiss this? Anger bubbled inside, but deeper than that was a sense of betrayal. She poured her heart into this. Later that night, as dishes piled in their cluttered kitchen, Sarah confronted him. "What's going on, Mark? Why can't you just be happy?" He paused, his eyes studying the floor instead of her. It was there, in the dim light, that all at once he broke, unraveling with a quiet voice that trembled. "I just feel like I'm losing everything, my job, my purpose. It's hard to celebrate when I don't feel worthy." Sarah's heart raced as the shock morphed into understanding. She could see the weight he had been carrying silently, the fear etched in his brow. Could this be the spark of something new for them? Despite her heartache over the shattered birthday, this revelation ignited a fire within her. In the following weeks, with each pie baked and every cup of coffee served, the cafe became her sanctuary. As laughter rang through its walls, Sarah fostered connections with the community. It wasn't long before Cedar Falls blossomed with a spirit of togetherness, reminding neighbors of their bonds. Sarah organized bake sales, playdates, and weekend markets, her heart lifted by the warmth of her friends. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Sarah built something beautiful, Mark watched her from the sidelines, caught between pride and the sting of his insecurities. He saw how vibrant the cafe had become, a haven for laughter and hope. Yet, within him, an aching awareness bloomed. He was fading away. Sarah was finding her rhythm, but he felt like a specter in his own life. With the grand unveiling of the cafe transformation approaching in a town-wide festival, tension crackled in the air. Sarah was busy preparing, but every glance at Mark ignited a flicker of uncertainty. What future awaited them? As she caught a glimpse of him standing alone, contemplating, she felt the air grow thick. Could they finally confront the unspoken distance that loomed like a shadow? But just as the moment felt ripe for connection, an unexpected storm descended on Cedar Falls, threatening to turn their fragile truce into turmoil. Would this setback drive them further apart, or could it be the moment they finally faced their hearts? The wind howled through Cedar Falls, rattling windows and sending rain lashing against the cafe's glass facade. Sarah stood behind the counter, her heart racing as she watched the storm unfold outside. The festival was set for tomorrow, the culmination of weeks of work and enthusiasm. But the weather was a cruel reminder of how unpredictable life could be. Mark shuffled back and forth, carrying boxes of decorations that had arrived just before the storm hit. "We can still manage this," he said, forcing a smile that looked more like a grimace. Sarah wanted to believe him, but the doubt crept back in. They were both trying, but every attempt felt overshadowed by the storm they needed to weather together. "Mark," she reached out, her voice soft but full of hesitation. "Are you okay? Really?" The last time she had asked that question, The answer had cracked the foundation of their lives. Today felt different. A storm might be roaring outside, but perhaps they were both on the brink of a new understanding. He paused, glancing at their children playing in the other room, blissfully unaware of the brewing tension. "I'm just overwhelmed," he admitted, his shoulders slumping. "I keep thinking I'm going to fail you and them." "Fail us? No one is expecting perfection." Sarah stepped closer, holding his gaze. "I can't do this without you. I want us to be in this together." At that moment, a loud crash outside jolted them both. Sarah stepped to the window, her heart sinking. A massive tree branch had fallen, blocking the road to the cafe. Panic set in instantly. What if everyone canceled? What if the festival fell apart? "Sarah, it's just a branch," Mark said, trying to sound reassuring. "We'll figure it out." But even he sounded uncertain. In that tense silence, something shifted between them. Sarah felt a wave of anger wash over her at the weather, at the branch, but mostly at the frustration of not being on the same page. "It feels like everything is against us, doesn't it?" she said, frustration slipping into her voice. Mark opened his mouth to respond, but his phone buzzed on the counter, startling them both. "It's Sam," he said, answering the call hurriedly. Sarah watched as his expression morphed from anxiety to surprise. "Is everything all right?" she asked silently, her stomach nodding. Mark ended the call, his brow furrowed. "They're canceling the festival." His voice was low, the weight of those words sinking heavily in the cramped cafe. The words hung in the air like a suffocating fog. "What?" The urgency in her tone startled him. "This can't be happening. We've worked so hard." Mark ran a hand through his hair. "I know, but there's nothing we can do about the weather or what people decide. I hate that this is happening too." But maybe his voice trailed off, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. "Maybe we can still do something?" Sarah suggested, an idea sparking in her mind. "What if we open the cafe anyway, just for those who can make it through?" "But it's not what we planned," he began, but she could see the wheels turning in his head. "Maybe it's better than what we planned," she pressed, daring to hope. "This place can still be a refuge tonight. We can make it cozy. Just coffee and pies. We'll create our own little celebration, no matter the storm." Something shifted in Mark's expression. "You really believe we can do this?" She could see a flicker of the man she once knew, hidden behind layers of doubt. "Yes. Start anew with what we have," she smiled, heart pounding with urgency. "This storm doesn't define us." Mark hesitated, but then nodded slowly, the tension in his body easing. Just as the storm continued to rage outside, they began to brainstorm. Laughter broke through the bitterness of disappointment, igniting the air around them. Little did they know, when they opened that cafe door, it would lead to an unexpected night, one filled with moments that could change everything. But as they started piecing together their plan, another unforeseen challenge lurked in the shadows, waiting to test their resolve. With the storm still howling outside, the atmosphere inside the cafe began to morph into something unique. Armed with a new sense of purpose, Sarah and Mark rolled up their sleeves. They transformed the cafe into a warm sanctuary, stringing fairy lights across the walls, the glow pushing back the gloom of the storm. "Here, let me help," Sarah said, as she reached for a stack of mismatched mugs. With a quick motion, she arranged them on the counter, colorful and enticing. Each mug was a small rebellion against the chaos outside. Mark joined her, his own spirit lifting as he poured over coffee beans. "I can't believe we're actually going through with this," he said, the hint of a smile creeping in. "Why shouldn't we?" Sarah replied, the spark of excitement igniting between them. "We can serve the locals, those who still want some warmth and company. It'll be a celebration of resilience." Outside, the rain continued to pour, but within the cafe, laughter started to build. Neighbors began to trickle in, drawn by the sight of the lights spilling through the windows like a beacon. Familiar faces filled the cafe, bringing an unexpected sense of belonging. Who knew such a storm could bring people together? Sarah said to Mark, as a couple of neighbors exchanged stories about their own challenges during bad weather. "It feels like I don't know, a community," Mark said, his voice thick with realization. He watched the dynamic shift as parents found solace in shared experiences, the kind of connections that had always been missed. Just as they began to pour coffees and serve warm pies, Sarah caught sight of her children, gleefully playing with the other kids who had come in. The sound of their laughter rang out like pure music. A moment of happiness washed over her, a balm for all the stress that had clung to her for days. As the cafe filled with the comforting aroma of baked goods and freshly brewed coffee, Sarah could almost forget about the fear that had gripped her heart just hours ago. People busied themselves at tables, mingling, reminiscing, and forming new bonds, the essence of community thick in the air. Then a sudden loud crash brought everyone back to reality. A window rattled violently as a particularly fierce gust of wind slammed against the glass. Sarah's heart raced again. "What was that?" she asked, looking at Mark with wide eyes. Mark rushed to the window, peering out into the inky darkness. "It's just the storm. It's trying to disrupt what we've built here," he assured, though the flicker of anxiety was evident on his face. But Sarah knew they had already defied the storm by inviting life into their little cafe. When she turned, she noticed Mrs. Thompson, their elderly neighbor, sitting alone at a table with her cup. Striking up a conversation with her felt right. "That pie is to die for," Mrs. Thompson exclaimed, a twinkle in her eye. "You've really outdone yourselves tonight." As they talked, Sarah learned how much Mrs. Thompson missed the community events that once filled her life with joy. The realization hit her hard. This cafe was more than just a business. It was a lifeline for so many people, and it was becoming a place of healing. Just then, the door burst open, letting another gust of wind sweep in. In came Jenna, a woman from the next town over, drenched but determined. "I heard there was a little festival in here. I just had to see for myself," she shouted over the storm. Their eyes widened in surprise. Sarah wondered just how far-reaching the storm's impact had been. As the night drew on, Sarah and Mark exchanged glances, filled with a new type of understanding. But even as joy filled the cafe, a feeling of unease flickered beneath the surface, like the storm that continued to rage outside. What would happen when the celebration ended? And that simple thought made Sarah glance back at the door, uncertain about what, or who, might come through next. The cafe buzzed with energy, the kind of warmth that wrapped around everyone like a cozy blanket, despite the raging storm outside. Laughter echoed, filling each corner as Sarah poured steaming cups of coffee, the rich aroma swirling in the air. She caught a glimpse of her children, their innocence radiating as they shared a table with new friends. The joy on their faces was a reminder of something important. This moment mattered. "Can you believe how many people came out tonight?" Mark asked, balancing a tray loaded with pie slices. His eyes sparkled, reflecting the fairy lights strung across the walls. "I know. It's incredible, isn't it?" Sarah replied, the joy bubbling inside her. A sudden thud made them both jump. Outside, a branch whipped against the cafe window, sounding a little like a foreboding knock. Yet inside, a kid squealed with delight over the last piece of pie, banishing any lingering fears. As they continued serving, Sarah couldn't help but notice Jenna's bright smile, a stark contrast to her drenched clothes. "This is the happiest I've seen people in ages," Jenna shouted. "You two have really done something special here." Mark beamed with pride, but Sarah felt a twinge of anxiety. Yes, they had created something beautiful, but what would happen when the storm passed? Would people just slip back into their routines, fading away from this moment of community? "Can I get a slice of that pie?" called out Bill, an older gentleman from down the road. Sarah nodded, moving seamlessly between tables, feeling a sense of purpose she hadn't felt in ages. "I used to bake just like this," Bill reminisced, "back when my kids were little." His eyes glistened with nostalgia. "I miss those days. We had neighborhood potlucks every month." The chatter turned reflective as others shared stories of lost family traditions. Sarah sensed a shift in the mood, like a careful vulnerability painting the air. Everyone was recalling the importance of connection, each story bringing them a bit closer together. "Maybe we could start something like that again," Sarah ventured, her heart racing with the possibilities. "A regular gathering right here." Mark raised an eyebrow, intrigued. We could even have themed nights. Games make it a real community affair. Their excitement sparked more discussions, inspiring plans and ideas taking flight. Amid the brainstorm, however, Sarah felt a shadow thinking about the days ahead, when life returned to normalcy. Then, the door swung open once more, the wind howling in like an uninvited guest. A figure appeared in the doorway, silhouetted against the storm. Just as panic threatened to set in, the figure stepped forward. It was Tom, a neighbor they hadn't seen in years, his face streaked with rain and astonishment. "Did I hear there's a celebration?" he asked, mouth agape at the lively scene. Sarah felt a wave of relief and excitement wash over the café. Someone else was joining this beautiful tapestry of human connection, woven tight against the chaos of the storm. As they welcomed Tom, a thought flicked through Sarah's mind. Just how deep did this sense of community go? What if more faces showed up, not just for a moment, but for something deeper? Mark caught her eye, and a silent agreement passed between them. They were in this together, and whatever lay beyond the storm couldn't take away the connections they were building. But as laughter spilled over the room and wove through the air like the comforting aroma of coffee, Sarah couldn't shake a feeling of impending change, an undeniable truth lurking just beyond the warm glow. What would happen when the storm finally passed and they had to confront the reality lurking in the shadows? The wind held still, but inside the café, the atmosphere transformed into something electric. Tom stood at the entrance, his presence igniting a flicker of recognition among the crowd. Faces lit up, laughter bubbled, and stories poured forth as if they had all been waiting for him. It was as if every raindrop outside softened under the weight of their shared history. "Come in," Sarah urged, guiding Tom to a cozy corner where the warmth of camaraderie wrapped around them like a beloved old sweater. Friends embraced him, voices rising in laughter, weaving the past with the present. Sarah watched, heart swelling as the café, her little sanctuary, became a tapestry of joy. Tom looked around, his eyes shimmering with surprise and nostalgia. "I can't believe I stayed away for so long," he said, shaking his head. "It's like a scene out of a movie." And there it was, the effortless connection that had existed before, rekindled. "Maybe it's a sign," Mark suggested, placing a steaming cup of coffee in front of Tom. "We should make this a regular thing. Bring the neighborhood together again, just like the old days. Potlucks, game nights, whatever it takes." "That sounds amazing," Jenna exclaimed, clapping her hands together. "We could have a community board right here, maybe even start a book club." As ideas bounced around the room like confetti, Sarah felt a surge of excitement. Their dreams of gathering everyone, neighbors, friends, families, seemed possible once again. But amidst the laughter, whispers of doubt still tangled with her hopes. The storm might eventually cease, but would this feeling of connection endure beyond the café's walls? "Sarah, you're the heart of this place," Tom said, drawing her back to the moment. His words lingered like the scent of fresh coffee, filling the spaces around them. "What if it ends up just being a quick fix, though?" Sarah thought, her heart racing. "What if we pour all this love and energy into something and it fades away?" Before she could voice her worries, a little girl at the next table raised her hand. "Can we have a talent show?" she asked, blossoming with enthusiasm. "Yes, that's a brilliant idea," Mark replied, visibly impressed. "We could showcase everyone's talents, have fun, and make it a monthly tradition." The room erupted in cheers, the little girl's excitement infectious. Tom leaned closer to Sarah, a knowing smile crossing his face. "You see? This is the spark we've all been missing. Just take it one step at a time. What's brought us together tonight can keep us together." His reassurance reassured Sarah, but still, a knot formed in her stomach as she glanced outside at the storm. Each clap of thunder felt like a reminder that change was inevitable. Had they built something strong enough to weather what lay ahead? As the conversation swirled around her, Sarah decided. She'd embrace the uncertainty, no matter how daunting it felt. This gathering was a moment worth seizing, a chance to stitch the fabric of their community, and she wouldn't let worry overshadow that. "All right then," she finally called over the chatter, her voice rising to meet the joy around her. "Let us plan this. Let us show everyone that community means more than just being neighbors. It's about being there for one another. The cafe erupted in applause. Laughter roared, and the energy surging through the room was palpable. But just as the elation settled, the lights flickered. A deep rumble echoed through the walls, and silence momentarily dipped the mood. What was that? Someone whispered, glancing nervously at the windows. Just a little storm, right? Mark laughed, but his eyes betrayed a touch of worry. But Sarah felt her heartbeat quicken. She wasn't afraid of a storm, she was afraid of what it might break. The thrill of excitement overlapped with dread in the pit of her stomach, and she couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over yet. What if the next knock wasn't just a branch against the door, but something that could tear apart the bonds they had begun to forge? What awaited them once the storm blew over? The tension in the cafe thickened as the lights flickered again, a brief reminder that the storm outside was still raging. A low murmur of concern rippled through the crowd, but Sarah fought to keep the energy high. This was their moment. She wouldn't let uncertainty creep in. "All right, let us keep the momentum going," she exclaimed, forcing a smile that felt bright against the looming shadows. "Who is going to be our MC for the talent show?" Instantly, hands shot up. Jenna waved her arms wildly, her enthusiasm infectious. "I'll do it. I can start gathering a list of acts." Tom nodded, his smile unwavering. As excitement began to rebuild, Sarah felt a quickening hope. Maybe this was exactly what they needed. A shared project, an anchor in the storm of life. But the next crack of thunder sent a shiver through her spine, and for a fraction of a second, doubt flashed before her. She caught Tom's eye across the room. He raised an eyebrow, almost questioning her luck at organizing a gathering during such weather. Was this the kind of chaos she was inviting into their community? "Hey, maybe we could do a theme," Mark suggested, breaking her reverie. "How about heroes of our neighborhood? It could highlight local talent and community spirit." Everyone buzzed with approval, tossing around more ideas of props, decorations, and the kinds of performances they could invite. Laughter bubbled like coffee brewing, but Sarah could still feel the storm whispering behind her before each applause, and then an enormous crash outside drew every head to the windows. Trees thrashed wildly against the wind, parts flying with reckless abandon. "Is that?" Someone stuttered. "It's just the storm," Sarah reassured them, her voice shaking slightly. But her heart raced as she thought of the damage outside. "Maybe we should consider taking a break," Tom suggested cautiously. If this keeps up, his tone carried an edge, hinting at worries they all shared but hadn't yet voiced. "No." A voice piped up, and Sarah turned to see the little girl, the one who had wished for a talent show. "We can't stop. I want to sing." A ripple of laughter broke the tension. Every adult in the room couldn't help but smile at the child's pure determination. Despite the storm, her little spirit refused to dim. "Okay, sweetheart, you can sing," Sarah replied, touched by the girl's zest. She felt the weight in her chest lighten just a fraction. The joyful chatter resumed, swirling around her like the clouds outside. Suddenly, Jenna jumped in with, "We should all share a memory of something that made us feel like a hero at any point in our lives. Those moments matter too." "Yes," said another friend. "It can be a touching way to kick off the talent show. We could call it Our Community's Heroic Moments." The idea caught fire, and soon, laughter and stories flew around the room. Each tale wrapped around the previous like a warm blanket, many revealing struggles caught in shadows. Yet here they were, sharing those moments collectively, breathing life into what it meant to be a community. But as they spoke, Sarah's gaze fell back to the rain against the window pane. Each drop felt like an uninvited reminder, a ticking clock that counted down to something unresolved. What was lurking out there? Just then, a loud bang echoed from the door, causing everyone to jump. Heart racing, Sarah stepped forward. Was it just the wind, or was this the moment she had been wary of all night? In that heartbeat, she realized doing nothing felt worse than facing whatever it could be. Taking a deep breath, she pulled open the door. The blast of cold air hit her, mixing with the uncertainty pooling in her heart. And beyond the threshold, something shifted in the darkness, waiting for her to make the next move. What awaited them on the other side? The door creaked as Sarah pushed it wide open. The storm howled, a furious beast unleashed. Rain lashed at her face, cold and unyielding, but she stood firm, caught between anxiety and fierce determination. Beyond the threshold, darkness enveloped the night. Shadows danced like phantoms in the rain, but she could make out something, a figure. She squinted, her heart hammering in her chest. "Hello?" she called out, her voice barely making its way through the tempest. No answer. Just the relentless wind and the rain, now drumming frantically against the cafe roof, drowning out every coherent thought in her head. The others stood behind her, their silence heavy with anticipation. Tom stepped up, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to do this alone, Sarah," he whispered, his voice steady despite the chaos. Turning to face the crowd, she saw concern etched on their faces. The little girl, still holding on to her wish for a talent show, looked at her with bright eyes, filled with expectation. It was as if she felt the weight of Sarah's decision pressing against her small frame. Taking a deep breath, Sarah stepped outside, the cold air wrapping around her like a shock. She strained to see through the sheets of rain, adrenaline pumping through her veins. The figure was closer now, a dark silhouette just within reach. "Who is there?" she shouted, feeling the edge of fear creep in. "Help!" came the faint voice, strained and desperate. It was unclear if it was human or something else, but Sarah felt compelled to find out. "Stay here," Tom urged the crowd. "I'll go with you." Together, they moved forward, pushing against the wind. The world felt unsteady, the ground slick beneath their feet. Each step felt like a small act of bravery, a determination not just to uncover a mystery, but to protect what they had started to build inside the cafe. As they advanced, the outlines of a person began to emerge. It was a man, drenched and battered, shivering in the rain. "Please, I need shelter," he gasped, eyes wide with fear and exhaustion. Without a second thought, Sarah reached out, guiding him back toward the cafe. "Come on, we'll get you warm." With Tom at her side, she led the man into the cafe's safety, where the warmth contrasted sharply with the bitter chill of the storm. Gasps of surprise rippled through the crowd as they saw the stranger, and though concern swirled, Sarah also noticed something else: hope. "Is he okay?" someone inquired, stepping forward with a cautiousness that spoke of protective instincts. With a nod, Sarah replied, "He needs our help." The storm rattled outside, but within these walls, they could do something incredible. They could share the warmth of their little community. As they found him a place by the fire, the energy shifted. The laughter from earlier returned, gaining momentum. Stories began to flow not just from the squeaky voice of the little girl, but from everyone, spurred by the stranger's presence. They gathered around, sharing experiences that bound them together in resilience. But as Sarah welcomed this new chapter, the wind howled louder, and for a fleeting moment, she glanced out the window. She noticed a flash of short, stark light in the dark sky, flickering like a warning. It was followed by another crash, unlike the thunder that accentuated their stories. "Did you see that?" Tom murmured, his voice low enough for only her to hear. His eyes darted to the window, mirroring her concern. "What was it?" someone else asked, bending forward with worry. "That was no ordinary light," Sarah whispered, unease settling in her stomach. The stranger looked up, still shaking. "It's not safe to be out there. Something is coming." A hushed silence fell, laying a blanket of uncertainty over the warm glow of camaraderie they'd built moments earlier. Everyone dared to make eye contact, the fear palpable in the air among the shared vulnerability. What was out there in the storm? Was the real threat not just the raucous weather, but something more? As Sarah's heart raced, she took a step closer to the group. "We will face this together," she declared, feeling the fire of the moment inspire her. "Whatever comes, we need each other more than ever." But as she spoke, another flash lit the sky, illuminating the darkness beyond the curtains. What awaited them now, just outside their sanctuary? The storm had only just begun to reveal its fury. The cafe buzzed with nervous energy as the flames crackled in the hearth, their warmth wrapping around the group, a shield against the chaos outside. Sarah felt the weight of their trust, their eyes searching for reassurance. She glanced back at the newcomer, who sat hunched by the fire, lips trembling and soaked clothes clinging to his skin. "Can we get him a blanket?" Sarah asked, her voice cutting through the tension. A woman from the back rushed forward, her hands shaking slightly as she draped a woolen blanket around the stranger's shoulders. "Thank you," he murmured, grateful but still visibly shaken. He took a deep breath, letting the warmth seep into his bones. "Do you know what's out there?" Tom asked, drawing everyone's eyes to the man. His tone had shifted from worry to a hint of urgency. "Something not right," the stranger replied, his gaze flickering from the window to the gathering. "People think storms are just weather, but they can bring more than rain." He paused, scanning the faces around him. "When I was on the road, I saw lights. Not like any storm I've ever faced. Something is calling to the storm. I think it's something more." Unease settled over the crowd like a thick fog. Whispers erupted, each guess more imaginative than the last. Sarah felt her heart pound in her chest. "But what do we do?" "Stay together," the stranger advised, his voice hoarse but steady. "Losing the connection with each other, that's when the real danger begins." The little girl shifted closer to Sarah, her small hands gripping tightly onto the hem of Sarah's coat. "Will you protect us?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Of course," Sarah replied, forcing a smile, though inside, her thoughts spun wildly. "We've already faced a lot together. We can do this." The second crash echoed again, sharper this time, shaking the very rafters of the café. The lights flickered as fear laced through them. Yet, instead of retreating into panic, the group grew still, their collective heartbeat sinking, a rhythm of resilience. Suddenly, a loud knock rattled the wooden door, cutting through their momentary silence. Panic rippled through the crowd, faces turning toward the sound. "What was that?" someone managed to say, their voice barely a whisper. "Stay calm," Tom urged, stepping closer, his demeanor fierce yet protective. "We have to see who or what it is. It could be someone else who needs help." But Sarah felt a different kind of fear grasp her heart. What if it's more than just help? What if it's danger? The stranger looked at her, his eyes locking with hers. "Whatever it is, we face it together. Just like we said." Another knock followed, louder and more insistent. The door shuddered against its frame. With renewed determination, Sarah stepped forward, the energy taut in the room as everyone turned to her. She grasped the handle, hesitating for just a fraction of a second. "On three," she suggested, glancing back over her shoulder. Time slowed in that moment. 1, 2, the wind roared outside, dipping into a low growl. 3. With a swift turn of her wrist, she yanked the door open, half expecting a supernatural force to explode into the café. The darkness outside loomed, but within it stood a figure, drenched like the stranger but larger, their outline almost menacing. "Help! Please!" the newcomer cried, voice wavering, fear evident. "It's coming!" "You have to." Before he could finish, another blinding flash tore through the sky above, illuminating not just the world outside, but their own inner struggle. Sarah felt the warmth in the café flicker like the candlelight. "What is coming?" she yelled against the wind, urging answers ahead of more questions. As the storm raged, they stood on the precipice of something unfathomable. The shelter they had created was about to be tested in ways they never anticipated. What awaited them at the threshold, just beyond the rain and thunder? And could their fragile unity withstand the storm's call to something darker? The wind howled like a wounded animal, clawing at the door as Sarah squinted into the dark outside. The figure stood tall but seemed to waver as though fighting against an invisible force. Fear crackled in the air, thick and suffocating. "Get in, quick!" Tom shouted, his voice a sharp command that cut through the chaos. The newcomer stumbled over the threshold, the blast of warmth from the café enveloping him. As he crossed the threshold, he turned back, eyes wide with terror. "It's out there," he rasped. "We need to barricade the door." Panic began to seep in, curling around Sarah's stomach like ice. The thought of whatever lurked outside made her heart race. She caught the terrified eyes of the little girl, still clutching her coat, and that small presence filled her with purpose. "Everyone, help him," she called, urgency rising in her tone. The cafe suddenly transformed into a hive of activity as people rushed to secure the door. Tables scraped against the floor, chairs toppled as they heaved them toward the entrance. "Why are we blocking the door?" a voice protested, full of hesitance. "Because whatever it is," the new guy said, panting, "it's coming for us." Just then, another deafening crack of thunder erupted, and the lights flickered once more, plunging them into unsettling half-darkness. Sarah's breath quickened. Was it wrong to be afraid? "Please, you have to listen to me," the newcomer said, desperation dripping from his words. "The lights I saw, they're not just a storm. They're like a beacon." "The storm, it's a warning." "What kind of warning?" Sarah pressed, trying to hold on to some shreds of hope, something that wouldn't shatter when the next crash of lightning lit up the cafe. He shook his head, his hands trembling. "I don't know. But I could feel it, something watching. Something angry." Heartbeats thudded loudly around her, a drum of uncertainty and fear. It was hard to reconcile his frantic claims with the reality of their situation, but the panic in his voice resonated deep within her. Sarah caught Tom's eye. They both understood what was at stake. "Okay, listen. We have to trust each other," Sarah said, raising her voice over the growing storm outside. "If we stick together, we can figure this out." The crowd nodded, but some looked at the newcomer with doubt. "What can you do?" a man asked, arms folded. "Nothing," he replied, voice breaking, "but you all need to believe this storm, it's something unnatural. People have gone missing. I thought I was safe, but the lights, they reached me, and they'll reach you if we don't act." A collective hush fell over the cafe. The fear that had been rising morphed into a unified sense of determination. Some of the patrons exchanged worried glances, while others squared their shoulders against the growing dread. "We'll need positions," Tom said, his voice strong, rallying the group. "There's no time to waste. Sarah, stay close to the windows. I'll keep watch by the door. The rest of you, help barricade. Let us ensure we're ready for anything." As they worked, Sarah felt the weight of their current situation press down on her. She could feel it, a tangible pulse of energy threading through the crowd, each heart beating for the same reason. Suddenly, the lights flickered again, longer this time, before dimming entirely. They plunged into darkness, and Sarah's breath caught in her throat. A low growl rumbled through the cafe, shaking the very bones of the building. "Stay together," Sarah shouted, grasping the little girl's hand as the room buzzed with tension. Then, amidst the growing noise, came another sound, soft yet insistent, a rhythmic tapping against the windows, like fingers drumming for attention. "What is that?" someone whimpered, wide-eyed in the dark. The tapping grew louder, a synchronized chant that seemed to rise and fall with the storm outside. "What is out there?" Sarah whispered to herself as a sense of dread wrapped around her heart. The question lingered in the air, bubbling with uncertainty, teasing at the edges of their reality. What would they discover when the storm finally unveiled its truth? And could they all survive whatever it was that beckoned from beyond the door? The tension hung thick in the air as the rhythmic tapping grew louder. Each sound echoed like a heartbeat, each crash of thunder punctuating the rising dread in the cafe. Sarah could feel it, a tangible weight pressing upon them. The darkness around her didn't just obscure vision, it amplified fear. "Stay together." Tom's voice boomed again as he reinforced the barricade. Everyone moved with a sense of purpose, yet the anticipation of what lay beyond cranked the fear dial higher. Sarah glanced at the trembling little girl, her bravery shining through wide, anxious eyes. That innocent trust ignited something within her. "Courage is quiet," she thought. "We can be brave for each other. Remember, together." She echoed, pushing through her own fear. The room came alive with murmurs and shifting, the soft bass of worry flowing around them. The darkness felt almost alive, yet it was the unity of faces around her that brought light. The tapping intensified, and then silence blanketed them all. "What if it knows we're inside?" someone suggested, panic rising in their voice. "Then we have to show it we're not afraid," Mark declared, standing firmly beside Sarah. The first flicker of strength radiating from him broke through the darkness as he placed an arm around her shoulder. Those small gestures became a lifeline. "Okay, what if we turn the lights back on?" Jenna suggested. "Maybe we can use the glow as a beacon to invite it in here and face it head-on. Or remind it that we're no easy prey," Tom chimed in, a fire igniting in his eyes. Sarah's heart swelled with gratitude for his courage. Finding a flashlight at the base of the counter, she fumbled excitedly, holding it aloft. "Let us shine a light on it. Everyone gather around. I will lead with this." The crowd formed a tight circle around her. Mark clutched her hand, squeezing it once. "On 3, we'll shine it toward the windows," he said, locking eyes with Tom. "Together now. 1, 2, 3. As they flicked on the light, a beam cut through the darkness, washing over the windows. The sudden brightness revealed an unfathomable sight. Outside, swirling with the storm's fury, were flickering orbs of light, mystical, almost beautiful, pushing against the boundaries of the tempest. "What are those?" someone gasped. "Spirits?" the stranger whispered, his voice barely audible over the storm. "It's what's calling," another voice shouted. "A beacon calling for hope." Sarah took a deep breath, feeling a strange sense of calm amidst the chaos. "They're here just like us," she found herself saying. "Maybe they want to connect, not fight." As if responding to her words, the lights blinked, pulsating with a rhythm synchronized to their heartbeats. In that moment, Sarah felt a deep, personal realization ripple through her. Connection is what sustains us. It dawned on her that this wasn't just a storm threatening their lives, it was a storm beckoning the community back together. "Open the door," Sarah cried. "Let them in." Gasps filled the room, reactions both fearful and excited. "Are you crazy?" Tom blurted. "No, this is it," she urged, adrenaline coursing through her veins. "We can't hide forever. These lights must have something to say." Collectively, they felt the pull. It was as if their very essence was intertwined with those flickering beacons. "We are all connected, even to the unknown," she said, her heart racing. With a resolute nod from Tom, she stepped toward the door, meeting Mark's steadfast gaze before turning back to the group. Together, she reminded them, her voice steady. With a deep breath, she flung open the café door wide once more. The rain lashed against her, threatening, yet behind the splatter was an ethereal glow, the flashing lights beckoning gently as if inviting them to join in a dance. "Come join us in this storm," Sarah called, and with a leap of faith, she stepped into the storm, her heart swelling with hope. The others followed suit, drawn by an unspeakable energy. The light and sound intertwined, enveloping them in a surreal embrace as they leaned into their fears and faced the tumult together. The collective strength surged, illuminating their bonds in ways they never imagined. In that moment, under the fury of the storm, they became more than an audience of terrified sojourners. They transformed into a united front against adversity, a community emerging with renewed conviction. From the corner of her eye, Sarah caught the little girl's exuberant laugh, echoing like a bell of possibility. Together they lifted their voices, a chorus of joy amidst the wild rain. "We are here," they shouted, feeling the storm begin to wane against the powerful resolve of their defiance. Through the rain and the chaos, they knew every heart joined as one. They could weather any storm. As the lights faded beyond the edges of the night, Sarah let out a breath. The storm had tested them, but they faced fears head-on, emerging whole, woven into an even stronger fabric of community. And with that, they let the storm drop behind them, ready to embrace new beginnings born from resilience and connection. So let us stand together, united for what truly matters. Now, I have to ask you, you need to subscribe now to not miss out on the next exclusive stories. This is your moment to show your support for our community. Be sure to leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep this flame of connection burning. Comment below on your thoughts and feelings about this ending. It's your voice that matters. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video. Send it to at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation and remind them we can weather any storm together.